You're listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. With the help of successful individuals across industries, Dirk breaks down the unknown parts of every vocation while highlighting the importance of finding a career where you can leverage your natural skills, passions, and interests. Now here's your host, Dirk Nevelle.
Hello, everyone. This is Dirk Nevelle, and on with me today is Stephen McGhee. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dirk. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. No, so I'll be honest, Stephen's one of those guys I don't know very well, but we have a similar background in terms of I spent some time at University of Santa Monica, and Stephen was on faculty there, and he's kind of in that world, but I've seen him through social media, and I just naturally have gravitated towards him, his style. He's just got something about him that's really attractive, and I like what he was doing, and I reached out to him, and he was, he has a lot of people probably reaching out to him, and he was kind enough to say yes and come on, and I'm very grateful. But he's in the world of leadership coaching, and there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm going to let him do that because he can do it better than I. So Stephen, if you're on a plane, going on a trip, someone sits down next to you and asks you what you do, how would you respond to that?
Well, first, and I will answer, I'm not being dismissive of your great question, Dirk. It's good to be here, but I love the title of what you're doing, Finding Your Zone of Genius. And the reason I wanted to backtrack to that is that actually has everything to do with leadership, because great leaders are individuals that are living into that zone of genius as an authenticity. And so I think badass leaders are leaders that are comfortable speaking the truth with a lot of love and a lot of intention, no matter what's going on around. So what I do is I work with individuals that lead companies, that are entrepreneurs, that lead nonprofits, or individuals that just want to make a huge difference in the world through leadership. And I help them to fine-tune the nuances of leadership and then apply it. And that's a key piece of it, because the theory of leadership doesn't do much for us, right, Dirk? It's like we can talk about principles and protocols all day long, but it's the guy and the gal that applies that stuff that moves the meter on something important. And so that's what I do. I love it. I've been doing it a long time, 30 years. I'm north of 60 now, 60 years young. And I've never been more excited about the field of leadership. And the last thing I'll say before I turn it back to you, Dirk, is that leadership is misunderstood. We have navigated from a command and control, autocratic, patriarchal leadership model, and it's debunked. We can watch it on the news. We can see it in professional sports teams, nonprofits, corporations, politics. And I say it's defunct and bankrupt because it's not working. So part of what I'm doing is supporting the reinvention of leadership, where there's a greater collaboration, cooperation to pull out the zone of genius, not only in oneself, but in the people that we enroll and inspire toward a greater vision.
I love it. We'll go deep on some of the stuff you said. I just want to go backwards a little bit. So in your 20s, so if you've been in this world for 30, walk us through a little bit about your background. Did you go to school, college, come out of that? What kind of career did you jump into?
I think it's always important to go back to a person's upbringing, and I won't spin around there for too long, but my mother reared 4 kids on her own. My father, God bless him, he's passed on, but he was never really a part of my upbringing or my life up until the last 10 years of my life, of his life. So it was meager beginnings. Worked my way through anything I wanted to do, little league football, wrestling, any of that stuff. So I learned a self-referential behavior because I had to. If I wanted to pay for a helmet to get on the football team, I had to go busboy or do something, which is a blessing. I see it as a blessing. At the time, I didn't. But then I graduate from high school. I was always good in athletics, most valuable wrestler, captain of the wrestling team, this kind of thing. And I learned a lot also about leadership through the discipline of athletics. go to college. I really can't get in anywhere that costs any money. So I end up at a small college in Durango, Colorado called Fort Lewis. And we used to joke, Dirk. We used to say, anyone can get into Fort Lewis if you can put fog on a mirror. And it was kind of true. I mean, there wasn't a big tuition to Fort Lewis College, although it's in this beautiful venue where there's skiing and mountain biking and fly fishing. So I get kind of more caught up in that than I do studying, which brings us to the point. The point is, I get out of college barely, and I'm like, what do I want to do? Well, of course, I want to make money because we didn't have any as a kid growing up. So somehow, some way, because of my communication, my natural communication skills, or my ability to interview, I get in this training program at the United Bank at Denver, which is a management training program that helps young people learn all about the industry fast for leadership positions. I do really well. It's like all of a sudden college doesn't matter. I'm really good at communication. I'm good at business development. And I rise up in the industry so quickly that I get into a division of Nations Bank where I'm on the succession plan. I'm in my mid 20s, 25, 26, 27. I'm in board meetings. I'm getting lots of leadership coaching to become one day, maybe even the CEO of a large bank. But I'm traveling a lot. I'm drinking a lot of alcohol at night. I'm eating foods that are not good for me. And I crash. I get into a health crisis in 1991, 8 days in intensive care, almost died. Like, we can unpack more of this, but this is the general, like, quick path to my life. And it changes my life. I'm lying in intensive care, and I'm like, this path I'm on of doing something that doesn't really fit for me for money is going to kill me. And I mean, frickin' for real. My soul is dying, Dirk. The spirituality of me is barely alive, and the physical part of me is dying with it. So I leave, and I leave lots of money on the table. I go bankrupt from it, and I start all over. But I have a clean slate now. I lose everything I'd earned for all those years trying to make money. And I mean properties and cars and nice furniture and all that kind of that lifestyle. And I decide I am going to be a part of the leadership development field. That's how I got started. And I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many directions to go.
It's a lot of info, right?
I'm just curious. I mean, sometimes I have these random questions that I'm just gonna ask them. So, like, I see you. You're very in shape. Like, were you physically like out of shape, or I mean, like the health? I mean, looking at you, I'd be shocked that you didn't seem heavy or obese. Like, was it just stress and alcohol and not sleeping well? I mean, what? I mean, that's 8 or 9 days of intensive care. It's scary.
Yeah, I tell you what, my brother, if you'd have looked at me, you'd have thought that guy is a specimen.
Okay.
Because I was 2 hours in the gym a day, but my insides were dying. The stress, the bad food, the travel, the burning the candle on both ends, not sleeping good. I remember one night in San Francisco in a hotel near the airport where I'd had room service. I'd watched a movie before bed. I really hadn't had much alcohol. It's not like I got drunk like an alcoholic might get drunk where I couldn't stop. I could stop drinking, but 4 drinks a night, that takes a toll. That's 28 drinks in a week. If I did 4 a night, that's a lot of alcohol for someone like myself and anybody that wants to be clear the next morning. But anyway, so I work it off in the gym. This particular night, I'm laying in bed and my body just starts sweating profusely, like I was in a sauna. I'm soaking my sheets, and it's from the stress. So I looked good on the outside, but I was dying on the inside. So there's looking healthy and then there's being well, right? Clear distinction there. But anyway, that's a good question.
No, I mean, and I really think like for people watching, getting to know you right now, what you said, I mean, you had a lot of, authentic success is one thing, like success might, I mean, someone might look at you and say, wow. And then, but deep down, like, I think that's the voice that I'm hoping young adults and people listen to is, it's an exhausting life to go down a road and run a race you don't really want to win. And I mean, green light, red light. I mean, you had this major life changing situation in your 20s. At the time was scary, but it might have, saved your life. And it also got you going down this direction. And so the reason I bring it up again is I want people that are watching that might be experiencing something similar, that feel alone, that feel like I'm done. I mean, there is another chapter. And I guess what gave you the strength? Was it just you, or were there people that in your life that helped you recover, or was it just an epiphany like I got to change to live and I'm going to make it happen?
I think if you remember, Dr. Ron Hulnick would often say, and maybe Dr. Mary Hulnick said the same thing too, but life is sometimes a process, not an event. Do you remember that, Dirk? Do you remember that language? So for me, it was a process, not an event. But at the same time, I would own it's a course correction. So the first thing any of the listeners really want to get honest, slow down and get honest with oneself. See, I wasn't being honest with myself. I was going past the warning signs. I was going to be bigger, bolder, stronger than the warning signs, than my own integrity. Lying to oneself is a stressful thing on every cell in our body, right? It doesn't work short-term or long-term. And we can get away with it for a while. So part of it is for each of our listeners to kind of go, how honest am I being with myself and where I am in my life? How long, and here's a stopper question for any of us, how long will I avoid the inevitable? Like if we're in a bad situation and we think we can just keep going, how long will I avoid the inevitable decision or choice to shift things? And we avoid it because we're afraid to change it, or we're comfortable with it the way that it is. So keep in mind that we're comfortable with familiar. We're not always hip to preference because it's familiar. Why does a person stay in a dysfunctional relationship and then get in another one that's dysfunctional? Why? Because it's familiar. It's not because we want it. It's not even preferential. It just feels familiar. So the second thing then is to look at, where am I avoiding things that are familiar but not preferential? And what is it that I want to choose to move into? And this can be a process of transition, of choosing new people to talk to, be around me, to support me. Any of those things apply. And I think that once we're on the path of honesty and authenticity and integrity, the things really do come. And in my opinion, through spirit, through God, whatever you want to call it, through our instinct, intuition, the answers with the clear intention will start to present themselves as, here's the next thing, Dirk. Here's the next thing, Stephen. Here's the next thing to your listeners. What's the next thing? We don't have to know the whole thing, just the next thing. And when it feels right, even if it's unfamiliar, do it. That takes time, but that's how I eventually came out of all that.
I love that. So I want to go deeper on that to a younger adult that may not have the life experience or the curriculum at USM, or familiar with meditation. I'm a big Joe Dispenza guy.
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone to try to get honest? Like, I don't know if people have those muscles. They think like that. I think they're maybe in survival mode. They're thinking about, the voices in their head of their dad wants to be a doctor, or their mom wants to be a lawyer, or they're just the social media pressure to, whatever. Like how does a young adult with so much distraction and voices like get honest and sink into their heart and try to get real on what it is that makes them different? Because I think initially people are watching this might feel like woo-woo or kind of strange, but like I'm 52 and I've been unpeeling the layers for about 15 years. So I understand this, but maybe a 24, 25-year-old adult, or even in your 30s or 40s may not. What is your advice to help kind of unpack some of this stuff?
Yeah, a great question, and a very real question, and one that can take some practice. But my counsel on it would be, first of all, the day of the guru is gone, meaning that to me, there's a lot less looking outside of yourself for the answers. So I'm not going to go look on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or any of those places for answers for my life. That doesn't mean there's not information out there. But that to me points, Dirk, to some of the distractions some of our younger generation is faced with. There's so much to keep our minds busy, to get the dopamine hit. So we're like plugged into all that. So you guys know, those are listening, you know where I'm going to go with this, and it's not that popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. You got to get quiet. You got to get still, because nobody is exempt from insight. And that's not woo-woo. We know the gut has the same membrane as the brain. What does that tell you? Your gut is a brain. Your gut is there to give you information on what's best for you if you'll listen to it, if I'll listen to it. So how do I do that? I got to create some space to get quiet. Now, there's a million methods, because I always say, and this is a little woo-woo, but intention before method. So I intend to get clear on my life. That's an intention. It's not a method. A method would be, I'm going to do Joe Dispenza meditation, which is great, from the intention. Like I want to get clear. I want to get quiet. I'm going to do, the method's going to be Joe Dispenza. But to all our listeners, you don't need a method. You need a clear intention, and the method will show up. So if my intention is to get quiet, how many ways can I do that? A gajillion. I can go for a walk in the park. I could journal in the morning. I could learn to meditate like you have, Dirk. I could sit and do breath work and then listen to what comes forward. But if I don't get in touch with my gut or my authentic self, I will never find my zone of genius. I will always be trying to fulfill a zone of genius that came from the outside in. Like, what did my coach think? What did my parents think? What did my brother think? What does my girlfriend or my wife or husband think? That's not who you are. Who you are is who you are. And I always say not one soul will be lost, meaning you have an individual and unique gift that is bad fucking ass. Hope the F word's okay. But okay. It's like, it is badass who you are when you're in touch with it. So is it worth it to get quiet and listen? You'll get answers. May not be the whole kit and caboodle in the first 30 minutes, but you'll get some insight as to what's next. And then what? Trust it.
I love
Take
it.
the step. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking too, like a lot of the voices, even though they're from love people, I just remember my dad wanted security, and like a lot of those things, they want the best for you. But sometimes the people that are closest to you kind of, and I don't want to generalize, but maybe sometimes it's playing it safe, but like sometimes you need to listen to yourself, and it's good to surround yourself with people you love and trust. But there's that recurring, thought you have in your heart, your head. And I just think if I could see, I would love people. I have a daughter who's a senior in high school and a son who's a freshman. And I've been trying to get them to meditate for a while. And God, how powerful would it be if the younger generation could get present and still, because beautiful things happen in that space. And it took me a long time to figure that out. So I love what you said. I am curious, kind of getting back into your career. And so here you are in your late 20s, and then you got into leadership coaching. And by no means do I think you have to be 50 to be credible, but was that a difficult, like for people who are watching and they're interested in leadership coaching, to be, 30 years old and be credible, like working with CEOs or business leaders, was that a struggle? How did you prove yourself, or how did you, you didn't have years and years of experience, right? Doing that. How did you get into that situation?
Well, and so I'll give a more general answer to it, and then I'll get more specific. So generally speaking, we all have to be willing to go through the litmus test for anything that we want to do like that. Like, I do see the genius and the brilliance in the younger generations today. And I'm not knocking my generation either, but I'm saying that I see these younger people as the new leaders of this world, and they will find the solutions to planetary problems because they're just coming in more conscious than my generation came in my humble opinion. So I just want to put that out there as a broad stroke. Like, I talk to some of these younger people and I'm blown away by where they are in their life right now. And they want a better life and they want to make a world of difference. Having said that, so many of them want to jump the steps. There's no value in jumping the steps. So I can tell you that my first seminar, I was living in an apartment because I was broke, and there was a conference room that I could rent on Saturday mornings for like $50. And I would invite everyone I know on Saturday mornings to come listen to me talk about values first, vision second, action third. I'd made up this thing. It was terrible. It was really bad. And it was donation. And I didn't even get enough donations to pay for the room. If you're not willing to go through some of those experiences, then you're probably not really that committed to going through the process that's necessary to get the wisdom to be really good at it. So I see a lot of people want to jump over that. A lot of coaches, I coach a lot of coaches. Coaches hear about fees from guys like me that have been coaching for 30 years, and they want to make those kind of coaching fees in their first year. It's just not how it works. I'm not saying some people don't do it, and depending on life experience, but you have to be willing. Or the time I went and did a keynote speech, I did get $500 for that keynote speech, which to me was like a godsend. Like, oh my God, I'm getting paid to fly to Boston and give this speech. But I was so bad that, Dirk, you've been to conferences where you go to the coffee table after and there's the muffins and the croissants and the coffee. I walked up to it, the group was there, and the seas parted. Like, I was so bad, nobody even wanted to say hi to me. They were embarrassed for me. That's how bad I was. Am I focused on that? No. I went back to my room and cried. A grown man crying because I was that bad chasing my dream. Why do I share that? Because most people don't. That's what it takes. Those are only two of a lot of situations, taught me what to do better, how to prepare better, how to be more real, how to be more authentic. Don't be Tony Robbins, Stephen McGhee, be Stephen McGhee. I was a terrible Tony Robbins. And you would be a terrible Stephen McGhee, just like I would be a terrible Dirk Nevelle. I would be terrible at being you. So be yourself, trust the process, take the steps, trust your instincts. There'll be wins, there'll be losses, there'll be mistakes, there'll be victories, but they're all good. See, we tend to think in this world of absolutes like wrong, right, loser, winner, dark, light, fear, love. What I like to say is they're all iterations that bring us to the next place. So a mistake is not better than a win or worse than a win. It's just a way to learn.
I love it. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. By the way, I have heard my name a million ways. It's Dirk Nevelle, but I've heard Dirk Neville, Dirk Nevelle. But just for the audience.
Okay, thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all good. One of the things you said that just struck me in a big way is I was looking at expediting success. Like I didn't want to put in the time I wanted to jump to the front of the line. I just wanted to be different, like on the Enneagram, I'm a type 4. I'm an individual. I wanted to stand out. I didn't want to be normal. As a kid, sports was my life. I thought I would do something in my career with sports. So being normal was not safe with my dad. Like I couldn't be just one of the. So when it came time for me in choosing a career, it was hard because here I am out of college and now I'm starting over. And I didn't want to go sell long distance at AT&T, or sell pagers I wanted to run the show. So you talked about, you see people trying to skip over some of the steps. I know there's multiple steps, but are there 2 or 3 that you see consistently that are the biggest steps that people try to avoid or jump over in life? Whether it's to be in any profession or being a leader or whatever, what are those steps that you see people not experiencing and growing from?
Yeah, people tend not to want to have a beginner's mind. People tend to want to, because there's so much information available, translate information, Dirk. So there's a difference between information and I hope this isn't getting in the weeds too much, but tell me if it is. Translated information is I heard it or I read it, and now I'm parroting it. I'm getting on social media, and now I'm the voice. I'm the expert because I read this or I heard this. That's translated information. And then they wonder why it's not sticking, or they wonder why they're not getting hired. Transformed information comes through wisdom. To get to wisdom, a person has to have a beginner's mind. There's no way you use the word expedite. I agree. There's no way to expedite it. It's experience, but I want to fall in love with that process. That's part of the journey. It's part of the life. It's like enjoying the entirety of it. And a person will get there a lot faster that way by being humble, neutral, and willing. I always say the willingness to do gives us the ability to do. And I see some people want to skip the willingness to do. I don't want to do that job. I want to do the higher paying job that's more exposed and gets more acknowledgement. But you might get away with it for a while, but eventually, we can all smell a rat, right? We can all listen to a speaker and we can tell whether they're being real or not being real, whether it's translated or through wisdom or transformation. Translation's not bad. It's part of the process, but I see too many people want to skip over it.
I get it. So the story of you speaking and people parting the seas and you crying, I mean, I feel like I was my wife and I use the word dumb chills. Like when someone's up there and maybe not doing a great job and you feel embarrassed for them, you're like, oh God. And I've been up there. I've done public speaking on things I didn't care about and it wasn't a good experience at all. What was it that you thought you were so bad at? Was it just not authentic? Were you paraphrasing stuff, or was it not coming from the heart? You're very good at what you do now, but what were you not doing then?
I was faking it. I was not being real. I would have been better suited to get up there and say, this is my very first keynote. I'm nervous. I really want to provide value for you guys. And here's some things I think are valuable. But I want to also open it up to the audience to share some of what's been valuable for you. That would have been a valuable presentation. What I did do was I got up there as an expert. I got up there as a leadership expert at whatever age I was at the time, 29 or 30. And I was in an audience of very successful individuals in the financial services arena. And I'm not saying there wasn't any value in there, but it wasn't real. It wasn't grounded in any experience. It was just words coming out of my mouth that I'd heard, and they don't land for people. And by the way, to your point, and I agree with you 1000%, people want you to win. People want us to win. I think some people get resentful at times when someone's really successful at something because they haven't found that level of success in themselves and they can judge it. But I think, I don't remember the show. It was a sports show. Maybe it was a Wide World of Sports. You may not be, I'm older than you, but do you remember the Wide World of Sports? And you'd watch the beginning of it, and like you'd see people win a gold medal, or you'd see people win an event, or the last minute they'd cross the finish line dragging themselves. We feel that in our hearts. We feel that in our bodies. I tear up on that stuff because we want them to win. We want the underdog to cross the line. And when they do, there's a part of all of us that goes, yeah, fuck yeah, they did it. They finished it. We did it. Not just they did it, we did it. So know that too. Know that I want you to win. All the listeners, I want to win. I want to see this success, but we can't skip over it. Those people we see standing on the podium at the Olympics, they did a lot of 4 a.m. swims.
Yeah. I mean, I'm listening and I'm thinking like I'm around a lot of successful people in the real estate lending. And initially I was super insecure because I was always comparing, which you've heard the quote, it's the ultimate thief of joy. And then I started like reframing that and like being proud of these guys and gals, like, and learning from them and realizing like they put in a lot of time and effort to get to where they were. And it's a great learning for me to be exposed to that. And I don't need to be them, or I can be me and do it my own way. But when you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like what I love is the underdog who's real and authentic and vulnerable. Where I get a little triggered, and this is work, you know, I wish I was more like the Viktor Frankl quote about the time between reaction and stimulus. Sometimes I'd react really quick, but I tend to be triggered by people who I don't think are real or phony or salesy or not. And I really gravitate towards those people that are honest and, you know, I don't know what it is about that. So that's who I root for. And I think the reason I bring it up is a young adult or someone who sometimes I think you need to be strong and perfect and all of that, but the world doesn't need that. I think the world needs you just the way you are. And I think there's a lot of strength in that. And I don't feel like I don't think young adults feel safe when they're vulnerable. But, you know, in my later years, I've become very comfortable with being vulnerable, and it's really served me.
Well, I think you and I are on the same page, and it's something I learned over time myself, especially in the leadership field. Like I thought leadership meant having the answers, being the expert, you know, tell orientation, like here's what you do, advice giver. And through life and hard knocks, you know, which we don't have time to get into all of my hard knocks, but, you know, I think people can look at a person like me and think, oh, he didn't have hard knocks. Well, I've had a lot of hard knocks. I just tell you that those hard knocks have been the reason for my fulfillment in life, because I've used them. And you've heard this, use everything for your learning, growth, and advancement, right? And I think that's important for any listener on this podcast to understand that too. Like whatever's going on, it will pass. And when it passes, there'll be a gem there for you. You'll have a choice. You'll either get cynical and resigned, or you'll get better from it. But one of the ways to do it is, to your point, the beautiful point you make, is vulnerability. Be vulnerable. There's a lot of strength in vulnerability. I have way better relationships now in my life than I did 20 years ago because I'm way more vulnerable. I'm way more honest. I'm okay to say, I don't know, or how do I do this, or how did you do that? And I'll do that with a elder, or I'll do that with a young person. If I don't know, I don't know. And I'm also willing to share what I think I do know. But growth mindset is huge for all of us, regardless of our age.
I love it. So, getting into your leadership coaching, I'm curious what that looks like behind the scenes. I'm assuming over time you've just become credible and people refer you off because they've had a great experience. But getting going on that, like, does that mean you have 10 clients, 50 clients, 20 clients? Are they clients forever? Are they clients for 2? I mean, what's the structure behind leadership coaching? And, are you, do you reach a point to where like, hey, I have so many hours in a day, I'm good at X amount. Like, what does that look like?
Well, you asked all the great questions. I'll try to get to all of it as much as I can. But so I have chosen to do deep long-term work. So I have up to 10 one-on-one clients, and most of my clients' original agreement is for a year. Often my clients will be with me for 2, 3, 4 years. I've had some clients longer than 5 years. So that hopper fills up pretty quickly based on it's a limit. There's only 10, there's a high fee for that, and it's over a long period of time. Not everyone wants that. It's not right for everyone. Then I run programs. Like I run a program called the L4, which is about longevity and life and well-being and leadership. That isn't as much a business model for me as a service model. I want to serve, given where we are on the planet, given what we learned about immunity and cognitive function during COVID and the lockdown and all of that. It's always been a hobby of mine to stay well after my incident back in 1991, which we discussed briefly. So I always do, I'll roll out those programs so it's easy access for people. It's not a big commitment of time or money. So I do that. And then I keep, what else did I miss there, Dirk? I think I got.
You're right on. I mean, so you've got the one-on-one coaching, you've got the group coaching, which is more service oriented. Do you also speak in front of large groups, or is it done via Zoom? I mean, is it face to face? Do you have clients all over the country?
I have clients all over the world, and I do the one-on work on Zoom. But a lot of times I will, because I had a background in doing culture change and strategy initiatives for many years inside of large organizations, including, not to be dropping names, but just to give you an idea, like Microsoft. Like I worked inside of Microsoft for many years on strategy and culture. And so when I work with an individual, what sometimes occurs is, hey, can you come in and share this? Can you share your zone of genius with our team? So that's about the largest speaking I do these days. I have in the past done keynote speeches all over the world. I've opened the World Cup, as a keynote speaker. I've done a lot of large groups, public speaking. I did for 5 years where I was in 3 cities in 3 days, speaking to groups from the size of about 50 to 250 people. Then I'd go to the next city and the next city. I share that with you as part of my resume, number one, but number two, because I learned so much. Imagine listening to that many people over the years about their problems of their business or problems in leadership. I just became a sponge. And I always tell people too, if you don't know what to say, ask a question. And I'd catch myself and I'd say, so what's your biggest challenge and what's your solution to it? I would ask broad stroke questions, but the hands would go up and I would hear these people just share this wisdom. And it was like you could hear the mic drop in the room. So I never felt like I had to have the answers from the front of the room. In fact, more now than ever, I'm like, I'm holding a container for a group of people that have the answers. That's how I see it.
So what is it? I mean, the why behind, like, I know you're getting a lot of things out of this, like, but it's true to who you are. Like, where's the joy come from? Is it in helping transform the way people think and then create better lives for the people underneath them? Like, what is that feeling of like, oh wow, this is awesome. This felt good. This was like, this is why I keep coming back. This is why I do the work. What is it? Where's the joy for you? Like, I don't know if I'm asking it the right way or not, but I
Yeah,
think you get it.
I do get it. And firstly, I'm going to say the answer everyone gives on that question, which is partly true for me. That's why I'm going to answer it. But because you see the light go on, but that's only part of it, because that's such a good question. I want to give it the answer I think it really deserves from me and my point of view on it, which is just simply that when I was doing speeches, 3 cities in 3 days, let's just say a lot of things don't go well. So you could get into a city at 2 a.m., have a flu bug, and be on in front of a group at 9 a.m. in front of 200 people, expected to deliver 6 hours of content. There were many days out of 5 years where I thought, I can't do this. I'm too exhausted. I got a bug on the plane. I had food poisoning. I was just exhausted physically, whatever. Every single time that I got on the stage, it all went away. All of the confusion, the fatigue, even the fever would lift and clear, and I'd be there. From that place, there's a connection with other people that goes beyond space and time, meaning we're not separate. So I know this is a little out there, but it's like you and I are not separate. We are so much alike, Dirk, even though we don't know each other. If you and I spent a month together in a cabin, we'd probably walk away going, oh my God, there's really not that much difference between Stephen and Dirk except for their idiosyncrasies. But we feel similarly. We might not have the same opinions and agree on everything, but deep down inside, we're not separate. That's why I do the work that I do.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, I did a meditation today where I was just trying to drop in, and a lot of what Joe does on his guided meditations is you become one of, we're all, I'm going to Tommy boy this and say it the wrong way, but when you realize we're all part of the same thing, and there's so many distractions with our normal senses, but when you're able to drop into that place, even if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. There's a lot of people that do what you do, right? I mean, but what is it like if someone was to describe what's unique about Stephen? What's your guess on what they're saying? Like, if someone was to say, how's he different than someone else or whatever, like, are there 2 or 3 things that seem to come up? Or if you were to take a stab at it, what do you think makes you unique?
There's a coach I've had in my life in the past named Steve Hardison, and he said this first, so I want to give him credit for it. He said, I don't have any competition. And when he first said it, I thought, that's kind of arrogant. But then he explained what he meant by that. And I would say to you, I don't have any competition. And I don't have any competition because there's nobody like Stephen McGhee on the planet but Stephen McGhee. And all I'm trying to do is be Stephen McGhee. So what's unique to Stephen McGhee is I'm being Stephen McGhee. Now, some people are going to like that, and that's okay. And some people are not going to like it, and that's okay. So my job and my zone of genius is to be 1000% Stephen. And when I'm 1000% Stephen, without the concern about any of the other stuff, am I being loved? Am I being liked? Did I say that right? Did I get that wrong? All that drops away, and there's just a very easy, graceful, natural way of being that's unique to me, and nobody else has it but me. So if someone comes to me and says, I'd like to hire a coach, I want to talk to you, I'll go, let's talk. And sometimes that person might go, I don't think this is a fit for me. I go, let me help you find one that is. Or the other happens sometimes. But what really we're saying is there's plenty for everyone when we're being ourselves. So that listen, I'm a capitalist. I believe in competition and I believe in business. I want to be clear about that. At the same time, I don't believe in competition the way we've had it in the past, where you try to bury your competitor so you can get more profit. I don't buy it anymore. I think we need to drop that model and come to one which is like, here's what we do better than anybody. And if that's what you want, come here. Instead of the other way around, which is to try to write some crap on social media that disses on somebody's product because you want to sell more of your own, or telling lies about it. I mean, that model is going to come back on people that continue putting out and dispensing false information. It's going to hurt them, not help them.
I love it. One of my coaches always said, truth is the best script. And like in my business, you know, I often say, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a BSer. But I think what I'm hearing from you that I want people to be paying attention to is when you are who you are and you're being you're being Stephen McGhee, I'm being Dirk Nevelle, you can't go wrong. There's no right or wrong. It is what it is. Like Papa, I am what I am. And like sometimes I've been in a situation where I had to speak on stuff I was so not into, like mortgage products and programs that are boring. You know, I mean, I can talk to them, I'm educated, but when I speak from the heart and I'm being vulnerable and honest, it's like, it's a different platform. It's a different world. And I think what I'm hoping is younger people, when you fake it, you can, like when you're running a race, you don't really want to win. You can only run for so long. But when you're running a genuine, authentic race, you know, beautiful things will happen. And I see that in different careers and the whole genius zone. People in their flow, where it's just, they're not faking it, it's natural. They differentiate themselves. And it's not always about money. It's just joy. It's success. It's happiness. It's like, that's where I want to see people going in choosing their life work. So sorry to ramble. But I love what you said about that. You know, you said you're in your 60s or around there. I mean, do you want to just keep doing what you're doing? I mean, is there an end game? I mean, do you do this until, I mean, do you have is there something out there that you'd love to do that's different than what you're doing now?
First of all, I want to say to you, you're not rambling at all. I love listening to you. So carry on anytime. It's great stuff. Yeah, I don't see myself doing anything but continuing this work in some way, shape, or form. All right. It's had lots of reinventions along the way. I've climbed mountains with executives and made movies on the top of, or climbing Aconcagua, the Aconcagua Man Project. I've done river trips down in Costa Rica with people and done leadership work. But the L4 program I'm currently doing. So versions of leadership look like, as best as I can tell, is what I will continue to do. And there are layers to it, and there's creativity to it, and there's reinvention to it. It's not boring to me. Have I had times where I'm paused and I'm like, absolutely, abso-frickin-lutely. There have been a lot of times over the 30 years I've been doing leadership where I did not know what was next. And I always say the pauses are just as important as the action. And I think more people need to pause more and allow for the incubation process to occur. Because whenever I've really gone deep into that, into the stillness, I've always emerged with a better thing, something more fun. And I do believe that, like, do stuff that you love doing it. Aconcagua, I wanted to climb mountains, so I made a program and took a group of clients up the mountain.
Was that the 7 individuals?
Yeah.
So those were clients that you took up?
Uh-huh. Clients and friends. I mean, they were friends, clients, but they'd all been clients. Yeah.
Was that scary? I mean, I get freaked out of heights, and I've never been a mountain climber, but what was that like in a nutshell? I mean, was it Was it life-changing for you?
It was life-changing for me, and dare I say everyone. I mean, I'm happy to gift the movie to any of your listeners that want it. All I need is a Vimeo and I'll give them the code so they don't have to pay for it. But it's a PBS friendly film. But yes, scary. We watched people die. We saw dead bodies. It was life altering for sure.
Wow. Well, I'd be happy. I think it was like $3.99 or $4.99. I'd be happy to. You don't need to give me a code, but I'm going to watch it.
I'll give you a code.
No, it's okay.
The least I can do, my friend.
No, it's all good. I think it's very impressive. As we wrap this up, Stephen, you know what I'm trying to do. And is there anything I haven't asked you? Anything that's like you feel compelled to share with your audience? I mean, you've given amazing advice and content. But is there anything else that you on the tip of your tongue that you're like, I wanted to say this. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of be complete.
Yeah, for some reason this is present. So maybe it's just some of the listeners that this might be supportive to hear. Don't be afraid to wait tables or shovel walks or cut grass or do construction while you're living into your next thing or your zone of genius. I've done it. I didn't like it, but I did it because I kept my vision intact. And I think I hear a lot of people, especially young people, they want to skip that. They're not doing anything. I know one young person that is convinced she's going to be a billionaire, but isn't willing to really do anything to become a billionaire, almost like it's going to manifest out of the air. And it's like, go get a job at Starbucks. Well, I don't want to get a job at Starbucks, or I don't believe in Starbucks. Well, go get a job at someplace you believe. Well, that'll keep me from my creativity and my vision and all of that. Well, then the person's sitting at home spinning around in their head, and pretty soon they're depressed and sad because they're not active and they're not purposeful. My parting words would be, do something. It's short term and it will lead to something else. It's okay that you're not doing your dream job while you're getting to your dream career. I did it when I started my leadership. I did literally wait tables after I'd been a banking executive. And there's a whole story there. But the short version is clients came in and ordered lunch, and they were embarrassed for me because I was serving their lunch. Like, you're the guy that put a deal together for us. And one guy slid his card, said, if you need help, give me a call, which I appreciated. But the point is, I didn't want to do it for long, and ended up I didn't. I did it for 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, take action. Take one step, and you never know where that will lead you. And I think I have a feeling I know how you'll answer this question, but if Spirit, God, whatever, came down and said, Stephen, you can't do anything, no more coaching, no more leadership coaching, is there a dream job? And I ask this question because I think it's great for the audience to kind of get to know you in a different light. Is there something, and I'll just share, for me, I had on with me, I love music scores, music. At USM, I would listen to music all the time in between class, and it takes me somewhere. It's hard to really articulate that, yet I don't have any music talent. I'm brutal, but I love music. So I had a movie score producer who's very famous on with me last week. And I was so excited to just learn about the lifestyle behind being a composer for movies. So that's a total departure. I'm in real estate lending. I live on a farm with my wife. I mean, I wrote a book. I mean, I do a lot of random stuff, but is there something that's in your heart or something that you would love to do? Maybe it's even fantasy land stuff. Or are you doing it? I mean, I guess that you can go with the safe answer if you really want to.
Well, first of all, I love what you just said about you tipping your hat on the music stuff. I love it. It's great. I love what I'm doing. I'm not planning on changing that. It's, as I said, it's had its ups and downs and reinventions. But if someone said, oh, you can never do this again or any version of it, I'd be a functional medicine doctor. I would be Western medicine 3.0. And I don't know if that means anything to anybody listening, but it'd be like, we're not just giving you a pill. We're going to get your eyes in the sun. We're going to get your feet on the frickin' ground. We're going to get a nutrition program underway here, and we're going to turn this thing around. There's a lot of sick people on the planet right now that are, in my opinion, unnecessarily unwell. And what's normal isn't normal. So I'd go do that.
Yeah, that's kind of what my wife does.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and we're very blessed. Like, we had a lot, some issues, with kids and health growing up, and she's amazing. I mean, it's hard because she coached for a long time, and the biggest issue there is people aren't compliant. Like they might do it for a few months or 4 months, but they just fall back into their way. But I have a feeling you and my wife, Michelle, could have a pretty good conversation. She's amazingly talented in it. And it's a difficult road sometimes because there's a lot of, Western medicine, big pharma. I mean, there's a lot of friction in living a life the way we live it. And but I can relate to what you're talking about. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I commend you, and I commend your wife, Michelle.
Yeah.
Because it is not an easy field right now, but I think we're making progress. I hope so.
I agree. Well, I really appreciate it. I knew this would go like this. You're a great guy. I felt the energy just through social media and just some of your posts, and I can feel kind of who you are. And you mirrored exactly what I thought you were. And I think the audience is got a lot to learn. I mean, there's a lot of flavors of coaching, right? You go in leadership, one-on-one, one-to-many, personal, business, whatever. But I think what you're sharing is I haven't had leadership coach on yet. And I think that, maybe someday I'll be a leader and I'll turn to you for some coaching. I did want to ask you about, like, when you see, is there a leader? I did want to ask this. Someone like, I know you come across a lot of impressive people in your life, but what impresses you about a leader? Like, is there one thing, like, is it somebody that can admit that they're doing it wrong, or someone that's not afraid to admit they don't have the answers? Like, what do you think from your experience, like the things that have impressed you most about the leaders you've worked with? Has it been many things, or is there one or two things that seem to stick out?
There's one thing in particular. Of course, there's a lot of nuance in leadership depending on what a person's leading. But first of all, I want to say leader, every one of us is a leader in some way, shape, or form. Some of us are playing the role of leadership to tens of thousands of people. That's different than playing the role of leadership to oneself. But this answer is still the same. The answer is a person that goes into a situation and leaves it better than they found it. That's the mark of a great leader. Whatever the situation is, that could be walking into a boardroom meeting and doing nothing but listening, and then saying one thing at the end that makes people really think. That could be walking into a coffee store or a Erewhon or Halls Foods or something like that, and being so kind to someone in the store, helping them find something they couldn't find or something. But that leader is exhibiting and demonstrating a way of being that leaves the place a little better, just a little better, even if all you did is walk in and call in the light, which is my language for just like saying, I want to bring in the positive vibe here. Like, you can just bring a positive vibe. If someone flips you off going down the road on the car, you don't have to flip them off back. You don't know what their day's like or where they're going. I've done plenty of flipping off back, Dirk. I'm an 8 in the Enneagram. I think you said you're a 4.
Yeah.
I'm an 8. So an 8 is challenger, poker. I can be a poker.
That was my second one.
Okay, there you go. So I joke with people now. I'm like, I'm a refined 8.
Well, I wrote a book called Road Rage Justified, and it wasn't that I was justifying road rage, but when you talk about flipping off or whatever, I can kind of relate, and that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is amazing. I really appreciate it, Stephen. You're an impressive guy, and I hope you and I stay in touch. And I'm going to continue to follow you, and I appreciate your time. I really do.
Dirk, I appreciate what you're doing too, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking the time it takes to put guests on here and dispense this information. And I've had fun today. This has been fun. It's been such a great pitch and catch conversation, and I hope we provided some value for the people listening.
You definitely did. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Yep.
All right.